Last week, YouTuber One Master Teacher released a video called Kevin Samuels' Black Women in Brazil Are Better. And I actually recorded that video with some of his footage, but because of the models in the footage was so graphic because their behinds were too big, YouTube ended up age restricting that content. So now I'm redoing the video over with a new edit. But really, what One Master Teacher was referring to was the whole fact that Kevin Samuels was trying to bring Black people together. Not only was he doing that in the Black sector, but all sectors around the world. But Kevin Samuels focused primarily on African American relationships. And we all know what the impact was. We had a lot of people that didn't like him, but for some people, they say that listening to his content was life-changing. I've heard of stories of men and women, or women who felt like they were being entitled after listening to Kevin Samuels. Their relationship got better. I remember listening one day, I was on the phone with Kevin Samuels, and he's in Atlanta, and a police officer had stopped Kevin Samuels and said that it was because of Kevin that his relationship with his wife is now better. But here is one thing that's kind of like, the elephant in the room, if you will. Kevin Samuels, from my knowledge, never got a chance to go overseas. I know that because he had just was applying for the passport, and shortly after, right before he died, rather, he was on his way to take a reality show deal in London. So for some of the things he wanted us to do in London, my studio was supposed to meet up with him in London and do some, off the air recording and things like that. But Kevin never got a chance to experience overseas. So what One Master Teacher is in a lot of the passport bros are saying is that if Kevin Samuels would have been able to go overseas, then he would have also taken the same narrative that many of the passport bros are taking. What is that? That women overseas are just better. Now, let me talk about something. Kevin Samuels had a branding situation, and that situation revolved around the high value man. High value man is a guy that typically is a high earner. He's in a business network. There are some qualifications that he had to do. And if no man doesn't want to look at himself as an average man. Most men want to look at himself, even if he isn't that, as a high value man. So a person who is a high value man, like Kevin Samuels, a go-getter, a person who, is just very goal-oriented, that person is not going to really need to go overseas. Now, I'm going to get some slack for that, but I'm just going to be real. I'm a guy who's overseas right now. I've been living overseas for the last 7-8 years. And yes, it's true. High potential and earning people do live overseas. But I'm talking about your average passport bro guy. Most guys that I see that are going overseas are saying stuff like, well, you know what? I'm going where I'm appreciated. You hear that a lot. I'm going where I'm wanted. And I'm going where I'm not tolerated, right? Where I'm celebrated and not tolerated. So then that must be like guys who feel like, I'm not the most attractive guy in the world. And that could not be the case. I don't make enough money, right? In the United States. And I've heard some guys say that I don't need to make $100,000 a year to be over here. So that's the one issue there. But here's something I want to talk about when it comes to Black women being better in Brazil. Here's the big point that One Master Teacher is making. That Black women in Brazil and Black women in America could look the same, but the software is different. He said that hardware is the same, software is different. What are the software? What does he mean by that? He's talking about the values. Women being feminine, women not wanting to compete with their men, giving a man an actual chance to actually date you and have a real relationship with you, being respectful. That's something that a lot of guys don't find in the United States. So the question is, if Kevin Samuels had traveled overseas, would he have become a passport bro? I think if Kevin Samuels would have traveled overseas, his style of fashion and, you know, hanging out in London, hanging out in Paris, I think that would have been the same. He would have been hanging out in the same elite crowds that he's always wanted to be in, networking with the big boys. You know, Kevin had that kind of elite aura with him. But would he be able to tell that black men coming over to these other places would have an opportunity? I believe that would be the case. I believe he would be able to empathize with it, because just because, you know, you might be a guy that has money, it's not like you don't understand what's going on. You can clearly see if people in a different country are treating the men differently. Are they treating people differently? Are they treating you differently? That's something that you'd be able to see. But the case is, or the question is, would he recommend it? Here's what I'm gonna say. I think this is where one master teacher and Kevin Samuels are going to differ. One master teacher is going to say black women in Brazil are just better. Kevin Samuels is going to say you haven't worked on yourself enough to make yourself better in the United States, to where there are plenty of women already here. So if you're running from here, going over there, it's probably indicative that you're not where you need to be. You're not a high value man status. That's where the rubber meets the road. So for somebody like Kevin Samuels and one master teacher, which they're saying very similar things, Kevin's not going to really agree with him, because Kevin Samuels was pushing sort of a brand of elite kind of guy. And if you were not that kind of guy, or wanting to be that kind of guy, well, you know, I don't know how much sympathy he would have for that particular person. However, here's one thing I think they meet in the middle. Even if you are a high value guy, I think your opportunities would still probably be better as far as good looks and femininity overseas. That's where I think the two kind of conjoin. The reality is that, you know, women overseas are not perfect. And there are things that women in America, you know, can align with you better because we come from the same culture. But if it's about, you know, let's say you're a 40-year-old guy, 45. If you date a 25-year-old in America, how's it looked? It's looked down upon, right? Not looked down upon in Brazil. As far as the versatility, that's also true in America, but what are your real opportunities of that versatility? Whereas in Brazil, it's a lot of versatility. You know, if you want dark skin, light skin, mulatto skin, all that's there. No weaving, no sailing up. Well, they do have sandals in Brazil because it's on the beach, but you get what I'm saying. You have an opportunity to get, you know, the woman of your dreams as far as looks, and she acts a certain way. Whereas in America, they get the average Brazilian looking lady or a video vixen chick. That woman is not going to be acting like a Brazilian lady unless you're very, very rich. So I think, you know, out of that video, I think it was a very good video. I wish I could have played it, but, you know, I don't want to get copyrighted. And check it out. One Master Teacher is a really good YouTuber. Tell him I sent you. And as you know, the buffoonery remains an all-time high. I'm out.